everyone, this is Teresa from Base 10 Montessori, and I'm just here in my car doing another car video because, like other YouTubers, I have learned that sometimes the only part of your day when you have peace and quiet, sometimes the only part of your day when you can collect your thoughts is when you're sitting in your car. And I decided to take a few extra minutes before I head to my evening job to collect my thoughts about the video I made on protecting children with disabilities. And in that video, I talked about the Cheree people's story. And that was a pretty popular video for my channel. I mean, I'm a small channel. Not many people watch me, but there are a lot of people who were invested in that story and interested in that story and appalled by what happened in that story. And so before you get too much further into this video, I would encourage you to go back and watch that video because really I'm going to expand a little bit more on my thoughts when it comes to that video. With that being said, I also want to put out a trigger warning. Now, in this video, we are going to talk about both candidates. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about the US election. If this is a triggering subject, this would be a great place to stop watching because I don't want you to get triggered. I don't want this to upset you. So if this is not a subject that you feel like you can handle, I understand. Sometimes you need to just unplug, disconnect, and not listen to politics. So I'm totally understanding if you want to check out right now and not listen to the rest of this video. So with that being said, hopefully there are a couple people left watching this video. And if you are, I'm going to give my second trigger warning. Now, this channel, my channel, Base 10 Montessori, represents my values as a Christian and a conservative. So if those two things also trigger you, yeah, this would probably also be a good video to skip. If you're just here on my channel to get the lesson presentations, I understand, right? If that's all you want, this video may not be for you. I really want to talk about what both candidates have to offer the future of education if they win. Now, you could kind of gather from my sentiments in my video on Cheree peoples that I don't look forward to a Kamala Harris presidency. I find what she did to single mothers, what she did to children with disabilities, not to mention what she's done to the criminal justice system in California, to be pretty horrific. There are a lot of things in her track record as Attorney General in California that I find absolutely terrifying. To think about if she became president, this would be very detrimental to our society. Now, when it comes to Kamala Harris, I don't know a whole lot about her. Really, as VP, as senator, she was kind of benign, other than maybe some really extreme pushing for social justice, right? There are a lot of social justice things that she pushed for the education system that I personally don't agree with. Other than that, she doesn't really have a whole lot on education that I can find that I can talk about, but I can talk about her track record in California, and unfortunately, it's not good. It was very harmful for someone like Cheree peoples. You know, she arrested the mother of a child with disabilities because the child, despite having a Section 504 plan, missed a lot of school. But what is it that Trump has to offer, right? What has he done in the past, and what is he going to do in the future? And let's talk about that for a second, because I think if we're going to cover Kamala, we need to also cover Trump. And what does Trump have to offer? Well, to begin with, let's go back to his first term, because he has a track record, right? We can look at what he's done already. And if we go back to before 2016, I was a Montessori teacher in West Michigan, and I actually had some of the DeVos family in my classroom, and they were a lovely family, very humble family. I really enjoyed having them. This is not to say anything negative about the DeVos family. This is simply to say that, you know, I knew of the DeVos family well enough that when Betsy DeVos was put into the Department of Education, you know, I was excited because I thought here was a family that appreciated Montessori, that understood Montessori, that wanted to see more of a skills-based application, not just for teaching young students, K through 12 students, but also in our teacher training programs. One thing, and if you're not trained in a skills-based teaching application like Orton Gillingham or Montessori, you might not understand what I'm talking about here, but if you only have your teaching degree, let me back up. So one of the best kept secrets in society is that teaching can be a skills-based career. It does not have to be this 4-year academic or a master's degree academic training program. Montessori taught me that. Orton Gillingham taught me that. In fact, I am far better than I was when I graduated from college because of these skills-based applications. And if you've never had a skills-based training in your teaching career, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about. And what I mean by that is that anytime you learn theory, you have to learn it in combination with a skills application. So in Montessori, we don't just have theory, we have materials, we have a sequence of lessons. We know these lessons backwards and forwards. We know when the child is ready for the next lesson. We have the skills training to provide the materials, the correct materials in the correct order. And there is a specific process for presenting that. And not only that, there is a theory. And this is based on Montessori's idea of, what good is educational psychology if there is no application of skill that comes out of it? And what you're seeing in the university system these days for teachers is that we have a lot of theory. We understand the milestones, right? We understand development. We have the psychology. And we have this idea on a yearly basis where a child should be academically. But when it comes to the how part of how do we implement that, a lot of it is kind of left blank. You have to fill in the blank. And sometimes those blanks get filled in when you start teaching at a school and they give you a curriculum, and that might help you out a little bit, but there's still a lot of things that you have to fill in the blanks for as a teacher. And this is why so many teachers fail. This is why so many people graduate from college, spend 1 year teaching and say, I'm out, right? Because it's not skills-based. It's not a skills-based training. And to put it into perspective, it should feel the same as an electrician program, as becoming a plumber, as becoming a journeyman, right? That the skills are what we're looking for, and any theory we learn along the way is to help us with the skills application. Now, this is really important for our teacher training programs. And this is also important for how we are teaching K through 12. And of course, if you're Montessori, we do have a 0 to 6 program as well. And skills-based education, or the Air Kinder program for adolescents, is what Montessori emphasized. That anytime we learn anything academic, we have to also understand the real-world application of those academics. That's how children really learn. That's how children really experience the best of education, is application, not just theory, not just academics. And so when I saw Betsy DeVos take over that Department of Education, I had some high hopes for her. And to be fair, I think she did her best. I think she tried to make some improvements, but here's the problem. The Department of Education is so full of bureaucracy, so full of people that don't know the first thing about education. I'm not sure they understand the first thing about being a family. I'm not sure they understand the first thing about children or development. And yet they're making all the rules about education. They're making all the rules about what should be happening in families. And you can see the disconnect, right? And so I'm not sure anybody could have gone into the Department of Education and made any changes or any difference at all. And I think Trump sees that now too. I think he's kind of aware of that. Hey, the federal system for education, that's not working. And so now when we're looking at the next 4 years of his term, if he gets elected, he's talking about putting education back to the states. And I thought, this is an interesting idea, right? Okay, let's think about this and see what that would look like. And I have more questions about this than I really have any good insight. But I do think that if we put education back to the states, we have a 50-state experimental system to see what works better, right? It's going to become more competitive. So I guarantee you that Texas and California are not going to come up with the same education laws, the same education standards. It's not going to look the same. And it's going to be interesting to see, do families flock to Texas? Do teachers flock to Texas because it's a better work environment? Do families flock to Texas because it's a better education? Or maybe vice versa, maybe they'll go to California. Both states, however, I must say, have great Montessori teaching programs. So either way, Montessori is going to be good. But you know, I do think that this would allow for more experimentation in education, and maybe if we can compete with each other, maybe if we can experiment with educational ideas a little bit more, maybe we'll see some improvements. Maybe. Now, I also have some concerns. So let's get into those concerns. What happens to the framework, the legal framework that we already have in education? And I talked about this in my video with Protecting Children with Disabilities. What happens to the IDEA Act? What happens to free and appropriate public education? Does all of that get scrapped and we start all over again at the state level? I don't know. That I'm not a legal expert. I don't know anything more than honestly what I've read in my textbooks and what I've experienced in my career over the last 20 years. So I don't have answers for that. I'm going to need somebody smarter than me to comment down below and explain to me what would happen if all of this went back to the states. And so are we going to be harming families in the process of doing that? Or can we put any safeguards in? Do we have safeguards that we can put in to help families along the way in this process of changing our education system? And on top of that, there's one thing that I, as a Christian, as a conservative, one thing I really want to protect in education, and that is the right to homeschool. That is the right to have homeschools and homeschool co-ops, which I believe are a far better system going forward than big school systems. I think a lot of the reason why education is failing is because we've gotten too big for our britches. We need to go more grassroots based. We need to go more skills based. We need to not be focusing on the academic university system anymore. Learn a skill that people are willing to pay you money for. That'll be far better than the university system. I do want to see safeguards for parents. I do want to see safeguards for homeschools, and I think I'd like to see that at a federal level, because I do see states really attacking families for wanting to homeschool. This is something I do worry about. I do think that parents are the best teachers in their child's life, and parents, you are your child's teacher in life. That's the most important role you have. Anybody else who comes along the way, that's merely supplemental, right? That is merely to help you. And we've gotten this backwards in education, right? We keep taking from the parents. You know what? Relinquish your child to us. Just give us more control of your child's life, over your child's day. And you know what? You just unburden yourself because you're working too much. Let the school take care of everything. You know, that's not working. I have worked in childcare. I've worked in education. I have seen children be in childcare from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. I've seen children be in before school care, and be at the school for the entire day, and then go to aftercare. And literally their parents probably don't see them all week. It's time for parents to take their children back. And even if you can't homeschool, do more things to keep your child home with you. And for parents who are finding it difficult to homeschool, that you're afraid that you don't have the skills or the ability to do it, it can be a daunting thing. Like, where do you start? If this isn't your skill, if this isn't your gift, where do you start, right? There's people like me on YouTube. There's a lot of people out there, and I think Sam Sorbo is another one that really promotes homeschooling. There are a lot of people out there in the Christian community that are promoting homeschool that can help you get started. Teaching is a skill. Just like learning to do electrical work on your house is a skill. Maybe it's not something that you're the best at, but it's something you can learn. It's something you can do. And I think that any parent out there that has the opportunity to do that should. And if you need help along the way, there are people like me. There are people all over the place willing to help you out, willing to give you the supplementals. We need to put parents back into the center of their children's lives. And respect the fact that they are their child's teacher in life. And I do believe that that is the platform that Trump wants to put forward. I support that. I have questions about how that's done. I have questions about how do we protect families. I have questions about how do we protect children and how do we do better. And my solution to that is, first of all, if we are going to have teachers, if we're going to have education systems, get rid of the university systems. They're not really any good. We need to go back to a skills-based application system. And we can be skills-based and we can be teachers. We don't need the academic system to do that. And Montessori has already proved that. Orton Gillingham has proved that. I'm sure there's other methods out there as well. These are the two that I'm trained on. And let me tell you, they work. They work. The problem for me right now, as a Christian, as a conservative, is that every single training program from Montessori right now is extremely woke. And unfortunately, I can't support being an AMI member anymore. I can't support being part of AMI USA because of the stance that they take on too many social justice issues. And so I don't support AMI as a structure here in the United States. I support it as a teaching method, though. And my goal on my channel is to bring a Christian conservative perspective to the Montessori method, and to make sure that if parents need a skills-based method for their children, that my channel is going to be there and be available for them so that parents can learn the skills to educate their own children and not have to worry about all the other garbage that's going on right now in all the education systems. So that's my thought on the two different candidates. There's not really much to say on Kamala except for her track record is pretty horrific when it comes to the education system and how she's treated families in California. And when it comes to Trump, it was pretty much, his first term was really ineffective. I think he sees some of the mistakes. I think he is thinking forward of how do we fix this? How do we return education back to the states and empower parents, empower families, empower education at the local grassroots base. But I have questions as to how that's done. And that's what I would like to ask. If I could sit down and talk to Trump about education, that's probably what I'd ask him. Like, what does this legal framework look like? What do the protections look like? And get his idea of, do you understand the difference between an academic system in training teachers and a skills-based system in training teachers? And do you understand that, children can learn skills application in regards to the K through 12 system as well? And Montessori already has that set up. And really it comes down to working, getting your hands on the work, the actual physical work. We need to start doing that again and not just think about theory or academics. So anyways, that's all I have. I've got to go to my evening job, so I got to take off. But if you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to hit the like button, like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.